Hey guys, it's Miss Paraso here. If you weren't in class or you needed a refresher, today we are doing the writing one-step and two-step inequalities from word problems. Some things that you want to have with you. Pencil, always good. Highlighter to highlight your keywords. And that list of inequality keywords that we had. Okay, remember this? All right, so that way if we come across any of these, it'll help us to determine which sign we need to use. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, I'm just going to keep my words up top and reference them as needed. All right, so we have Chase made at least $240 this week at his job. If he earned $12 per hour, how many hours did he work? Okay, always read through the problem first, then we want to identify the variable and what it's going to represent. Well, if we go back up to the question, we can see it says, how many hours? So that right there is our variable. I'm going to use H, and it's going to stand for the number of hours. And it's always good to label it, so that way when you have a solution, you have H is less than, greater than, or equal to, and a number, you know how to interpret and what that number means. Okay? All right, so that's our first step. Identify keywords to determine the symbol. So it could be an inequality, or it could be an equal to. So that's where you go back up and reread. Chase made at least. I'm going to highlight that. At least. That's a key phrase there. And if we go there, remember that was one of our tricky phrases. Okay? That actually means that he made that amount or more. So it's greater than or equal to. So I'm going to actually circle that. And I'm going to explain that it's because of the word at least. Okay? So I know it's going to be greater than or equal to. All right, so now we got to write an inequality, okay, and solve it. So we need to pull a little bit more information. So we have at least 240, so there we can interact with our problem. So at least 240. So Chase earned, what he earned goes on this side, and then it's greater than or equal to 240. So if we keep reading, it says if he earned, and then it says $12 per hour. Well, remember 12, and then that per means to multiply, and then hour is what we're trying to find, so we're going to use that H. So again, in your problem, you can be acting out what you're going to be doing for your inequality. So now we can put it all together. So what he earned, I'm just going to write it out in words, is greater than or equal to $240. So now I'm going to write an expression for what he earned. Let me just move that up for you, sorry. So he earned $12 per hour. So 12 times H is greater than or equal to 240. All right, now we go ahead and solve. Railroad tracks. Divide both sides by 12. And we get H. And remember, don't write your inequality just yet. 12 goes into 240 20 times. And we didn't divide by a negative, so we're going to keep the inequality as is. But remember that word problems require word answers. So we want to restate this in a sentence. So we need to show what this means. Okay? So it said, how many hours did he work? So Chase worked 20 hours, but he didn't work exactly 20 hours. He could have worked more than that. So worked 20 hours or more, okay? Because if we're, he earned at least this amount, so we know that he worked for 20 hours. He could have worked for more because maybe he made more. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. All right, the quotient of a number and 3 increased by 12 is greater than -6. What is the number? All right, so always read through it first. And now let's go see, identify the variable and what it represents. Go back and see, all right, what is the number? That's the question. So that means that's going to be my variable. So I'm going to use N to represent the number I'm trying to find. Okay, which symbol? Is it going to be an inequality or is it an equation? Let me go back and read. The quotient of a number and 3 increased by 12 is greater than. It doesn't just say is, it says is greater than. So that's going to be this symbol right here because it's greater than. All right. So now why don't you go ahead and pause the video and see what you come up with for the inequality. All right. now that you're back, let's see how you did. So quotient means to divide. The number we don't know, and 3. Increase means add, and we're 12. So to put it all together, you follow the order. N divided by 3 increased by 12 is greater than -6. All right, so now you have a two-step inequality that you need to go ahead and solve. Again, I'd pause the video and then check back in when you're ready. All right, let's see how you did. Okay, there's your inequality, all right, that we talked about. And so now we're going to have to subtract 12 from both sides. Okay, and since we're subtracting, we don't flip the sign. So we get n over 3 is greater than -18. Careful, because it's a -6 and a -12. To get rid of dividing by 3, you're going to multiply both sides by 3. And we didn't multiply by negative, so we didn't flip it. So it's n is greater than -54. Now put your answer in a final sentence. So it says, what is the number? And it said the number is greater than -54. Right? So we had to state it. We couldn't say we don't know what it is like itself. We just know that it's something that's greater than -54. Okay? All right. I'm going to do one more with you, and then you're going to pause the video and try some on your own, and you can come back and check in with me. So let's do this one together. This one's a little bit trickier. You have to make sure that you're reading carefully on these. Okay, so AT&T charges their customers $145 for 15 gigabytes of data and $10 for each additional gigabyte of data. Right? If a bill was no less than, that's interesting, it was no less than, so that's kind of like a double negative there. It wasn't less than, so it must have been greater than 205. How many gigabytes of data were used? All right. And what I want you to do, and in class would have told you this, because this is a little bit tricky, it should say how many extra gigabytes of data were used. Okay? And I'll explain that as we work through the problem. All right? So we want the extra gigabytes. So that's what we don't know. So I'm going to use G, and that's going to represent the extra gigabytes. Okay? All right. So I already saw that there was a no less than. So if it's not less than, it's greater than. It's not less than it, so it has to be greater than it. But it says it can't be less than, but we could kind of interpret this as greater than or equal to. I think this one isn't open up for debate. I'm going to put greater than or equal to. It can't be less than it, but it can equal it. So that's a harder interpretation there. Okay? So if I'm going to write an inequality for this, let me go back. It says they get $145 for 15 gigabytes of data. This 15 doesn't matter. Okay? They have to pay $145 for that 15. They initially get 15. And that's the plus $10 for each additional gigabyte. So that's where that G comes in. Each additional gigabyte. All right. So if a bill was no less than, which means greater than or equal to, 205. All right. So that's, again, the G in this case, we're saying $10 for each additional gigabyte. We don't know what that is. So that's where that equation was coming from. So why don't you take a moment and go ahead and pause the video and see if you can go ahead and solve for that. And we'll check back in. Okay, let's see how you did. Your first step should have been to subtract 145 from both sides. You would have gotten 10G is greater than or equal to 60. So then you're trying to get rid of the 10, so you're going to divide by 10 on both sides. And you would have gotten G is greater than or equal to 6. Now to put that into a sentence, if we go back up to the question, it says, how many extra gigabytes of data were used? Well, because it's an inequality, we can't just give a one-number answer. We have to phrase it as an inequality. So I read it as there were at least 6 extra gigabytes. So I used, again, I went to my fancy phrases here. You could have said at least. You could have said a minimum of. You could have gotten funky and done the no less than. You could say, you could have even just kept it simple and said there were 6 or more extra gigabytes used. So, but you really don't want to say there were extra gigabytes that were greater than or equal to 6. Like, that doesn't sound natural when you're wording it. So you need to get a little bit more creative in these sentences than you did with the equations. Okay? All right. Well, you should be set up to finish the rest of these problems. We will go over the answers in class, or the answer key will be posted on Emoto so you can check to see how you're doing. All right. I'll see you in class.